All right. Well, welcome everybody to episode 1 of the Agency Way. This is a Room 214 weekly Blab series, and it's basically designed to help marketers learn from subject matter experts within a marketing agency, in addition to guest thought leaders in business and marketing worldwide. And so I'm Jason Cormier. I'm your host, as well as one of the co-founders of Room 214, which is a digital and social marketing agency. The format of our Blabs target 15 to 20 minutes. If any of you have spent a lot of time on Blab, you'll notice that people go on for hours. We respect most of you are working people, and time is precious, my precious. Our guest on the show today is Glenn Gaudet, president and founder of a company called GaggleAMP. GaggleAMP is a pretty amazing company. It's a company that helps other companies leverage their employees as social influencers. And so I'll just tell you very quickly, as one who's been involved with a social media agency for as long as I have been, a lot of the work that happens around social influencer marketing really has to do with building lists of bloggers and influencers. And, there's great tools out there, Tap Influence, Group High, I know is a tool local here to Boulder where, you can within 7 different social networks find amazing influencers. Glenn's company actually leverages employees as influencers and really creates a pretty amazing system for employee advocacy. And so first of all, welcome to the show, Glenn.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jason. Pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe you can, just to get us started, you can help explain a little bit more about what employee advocacy is for those who are unfamiliar with it.
Yeah, the concept in general is how do you get your employees to be part of the corporate advocacy program? In other words, how do you get them part of your online marketing efforts, if you think about it from that perspective? It can also be done with word of mouth as well, but I think when people talk about employee advocacy today, there's a lot of focus around the online aspect of that. So that might be getting people engaged on social media. It might be getting people engaged on blogs somewhere, writing comments, voting for somebody online. It could also be just writing a review on Glassdoor about what it's like to work at the company. So while employee advocacy at its core definition can cover many different mediums, I think that the focus today is really on the online aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like what I've seen anyway is a lot of people have ideas on how to activate their employees. And as we know, there's not much of a market for ideas. Those
Right.
who can passionately execute
Yes.
And make it happen, those people are set apart. And your company, maybe you can tell us a little bit about, I guess really the background is, there's got to be a way to obviously notify employees of what you want them to post on behalf of the company, what you want them to share. But then there's this whole other aspect of incentivizing employees, giving them a platform by which that can happen. So even gamifying, and then ultimately providing measurement so that you can see, hey, is this working and is it worth the cost? Maybe you can talk a little bit about what the challenges have been with that and where you've seen some of the victories too.
Yeah, no, when it's interesting, when I first started the company, which is a little over 5 years now, is when we started, there wasn't the same sense of social media marketing that's taking place today. So one of the challenges we had when we started the company is just finding enough companies that had social media marketers in the company, right? So that meant a dedicated focus for at least one person in the organization to be generating content, right? So if you think about it from that perspective, things have changed significantly over the past 5 years. Most companies today will have somebody in marketing that's dedicated, if not a team, that's dedicated to social media marketing. And part of that is creating content. So the next natural step is, okay, well, I'm investing all this time, I'm investing all this money in creating all this great content for the company. And then they put it out on the corporate Twitter handle. They put it out on the corporate LinkedIn page, Facebook page. And what happens is, because of the nature of social media, it's got a very short shelf life. So if you're going to invest all this money in this content, why not get other people to share it? And why not get other people to spread that around? And that's where the concept of GaggleAMP came in. I mean, we were the first to the market to provide an employee advocacy program that really makes it super easy for employees to share the content of the company. And we've gone past that now, and we also allow some of these other things that make it powerful to get people involved in a broader online sense. But let's focus on the social media aspect right now. Typically what companies that when we've reached out to people, the companies that were thinking about this ahead of time, they would do things like send out a weekly email. And they'd send out this weekly email saying, "Hey, we did, these 20 tweets. Can you share this with your followers?" And what would happen is, the employee might get the notification, and now they have to manually cut and paste and then put that into their Twitter account. And then, of course, there's no reporting. So the people that were thinking ahead, and of course, there weren't many tools at the time to really focus on making it easy. And that's where we stepped in to say, let's make this super easy. So from a notification point of view, obviously email is one of them, but because we have a mobile app as well, there's push notifications. There's also, if you have Chrome or Firefox or Safari, there's extensions that provide notifications through your web browser. So it really depends on what the employee themselves prefer in terms of notifications. And the easier that you make it, the more powerful this is going to be, because the more take-up you're going to get. So not only do you want to notify folks, but you also want the ability to help make it fun and make it easy. And I'll talk about each of those. Making it fun is, there's in GaggleAMP, for example, there's a point system tied to it. So anytime you share something, you can get points. And those points can be used towards the leaderboard. So you kind of create some competitive juices within the organization. In addition to that, you also have the ability to tie in a lot of rewards. And again, this is up to the company. So the company, I've seen rewards on our platform that range anywhere from, raid the marketing tchotchke closet and give out those T-shirts and those mugs and water bottles that you didn't give away at the last trade show, to now we see things like, dinner with the president, dinner with the founder. So really coming up with some really creative things that don't necessarily have to cost a lot of money, but just really make it fun for people to participate. Yeah. Now, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jason.
I was just going to say, for those who are watching and will be watching the recording of this, I know that, when I first came across your platform, I was like, oh, wow. Our agency is less than 40 people, but of course I'm thinking, oh, how could we use this? But correct me if I'm wrong. My perception is the sweet spot is really, it's closer to 100 employees and above. Is that accurate?
Well, we do have customers that are your size, and there's no problem with using it for a company that size. I mean, we had one company that had 17 employees. They put them all in GaggleAMP, and over 3 months they tripled their web traffic and quadrupled their lead flow. So it can be really powerful. Where our sweet spot is, where we tend to focus with companies that have 500 or more employees. Okay. And the reason for that is twofold. One is, think about it from the perspective of what are the chances of somebody having dedicated resources to doing social media marketing. So you probably want a larger company. A lot of companies who are at your size, 40 people, and there's nothing wrong with a 40-person company, right? Because we're in that realm. But do you have a dedicated social media marketing person? Now, you probably do, because you're an agency, right? Yeah. You have to walk the walk and talk the talk. But for most companies that have 40 people, they're lucky if they have a marketing person, let alone as somebody dedicated to doing social media, creating content, that kind of thing. So we look for those 500 plus size companies. But it can work if you have a social media manager who's generating content. You want to get it in. I mean, we sell packages as low as 25 people. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So I didn't mean to interrupt you there. You were talking about how it's fun.
Yep.
And then what was the other one? Easy?
Easy. And that's really important.
Yeah.
So when you use GaggleAMP, your employees will get notified that there's something for them to do, right? So that might be retweet something. It might be follow a Twitter account. It might be sharing a message. So there's a lot of things that the marketing person can suggest that the employee members do. And the key thing, again, make it easy. Don't give them 1,000 different choices, but give them a dozen, give them a half a dozen, and then give them the ability to basically say yes or no. And that's what the platform does, is it makes it that simple. So if you want to retweet somebody, you click the button that says, go ahead and retweet. And then instantly, we're going to go through the back end because the person had registered their social account. We're going to go ahead and retweet that for you.
Yep.
So in some cases, we may take them to a website, depending on what the action that the marketing person is asking them to do. Like, for instance, if you want to get all of your employees to write a review on Glassdoor, then what GaggleAMP is going to do is take you exactly where you need to go in Glassdoor to actually write that review. So it's things like that. But at the core, it's this binary decision. Do I want to do it? Or then there's a button, of course, that says no thanks. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is if you say no thanks, you can provide some anonymous feedback back to the manager. And that's where some magic happens, right? So all of a sudden now I'm getting feedback as to why I may not be sharing a particular message. And the next thing you know, the manager sees this and they get some feedback, some really good constructive feedback. And now they know if they want to get more engagement, this is the kind of content that I should be putting out there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great because I can just imagine as one who's working for a large company, first of all, if I like my job and I know that I can contribute to the company with my own social media, well, great. Right. But if I'm mandated this certain tweet, that I have to retweet and it feels corporate-y or whatever.
Or forced, right?
Yeah, or forced or not really in my voice. I'm not really going to want to do that. And it's pretty cool that I can actually give feedback, even to the extent that it's anonymous.
Yes.
Because I may want to just say, this tweet really sucks and I'm not going to do it.
That's right.
But I might not want my name attached to my managers.
To the fact that you're saying it sucks. Right. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting.
But that's important, right? Because you want to get this feedback loop going. Just like if you were doing anything with marketing, you want some feedback. You want to know whether or not something is resonating. So you have that qualitative aspect in terms of people actually giving you some feedback, some direct feedback. Even though it's anonymized, it's really potent. But then we're also tracking, okay, how many of your employees actually shared this? And then what happened to the message once it was shared? How many retweets did it get? So how many social interactions did it get? How many click-throughs did it get, right? And so all of this information now comes and gets aggregated by GaggleAMP for you. So you get this great and powerful reporting. We'll even show you what companies are consuming your content. Mm-hmm. So you really get a sense of the power of the content that's flowing through your employees.
Right. And you brought this up. You really kind of touched on this in terms of the metrics. A huge discussion in social media that's never ending is obviously ROI.
Right.
How are we getting a return? It's like, okay, great. We've got employees involved in our social media, but how are we really measuring the impact? And one thing I noticed, and by the way, for those that are just joining or wondering what we're talking about, I would just recommend definitely go to GaggleAMP.com and check out that website, watch the quick intro video, and you'll within seconds get a feel for the power of a platform that can essentially mobilize your employees to be social media influencers on your behalf. But anyway, what I was saying about the return on investment piece that I thought was really interesting is you've actually, within your platform, there is a dollar amount that can be assigned to things like impressions that are being generated as a result.
Yeah.
And so if you as a company know what your acceptable cost, per CPM is, you've got that assigned, and then you're looking at impressions that are being generated from employees. The platform basically allows you to enter that that input and then see, hey, I'm getting $30,000 worth of impressions, for example, from this platform. And that's really forward thinking that you guys did that. I'm wondering if you have anything else to say just about the ROI piece, maybe how customers have responded to that, maybe even what you guys are doing next with it.
Yeah, I mean that gets commented on quite a bit for new people who come to the platform. They say, "Oh God, I love this," and the challenge that a lot of social media folks have had is, in the past, social media hasn't been a formal component of the company, and if it has, it's probably in the last year or two. So now you've got this situation where you have really the newest group into marketing, and a lot of times they have to fight for every dollar. So when you have this kind of a calculator built right into it, so they can show, okay, if I was to go out and spend money on advertising to get impression-based advertising, to get click-through-based advertising, here's how much it would cost. You can instantly see the value that you're bringing by tapping into your employees. So it's really powerful from that perspective.
Very
I think ROI is always one of those things that's really important, and that's why we build in a lot of other reports that really help show the value of the content and the contribution that the employees are doing.
Excellent. Well, great. I know we're starting to run up against our 20-minute time limit here that we're trying to target to, treat everybody's time as valuable. I think I'm just going to switch gears a little bit. Glenn, obviously you're an entrepreneur, you're a thought leader. You're running this successful company. On the human interest side of things, I've got just a couple funny questions for you.
Sure.
One of them is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, I think that first of all, that's a great question. And if I could go back in time and actually give some advice, the big thing is don't be afraid of failure. And I have learned more over my career from the failures that I've had than from the successes that I've had. Because success, you don't always know what it was that made it a success, right? Success tends to be a confluence of things. Whereas failure, there's usually something you can point to and say, oh, that's what we missed, or that's what we didn't do well, or something. And so from that point, I would say embrace that a lot more and don't be afraid of it. Don't look at failure as a negative, but look at failure as just a way to grow and enhance yourself and your learning to get to the next success.
Nice. Yes, and amen. Real quick, what's the best book you've read this year and why?
So the best book I read, actually, that's a really good question. I want to get the author. I just read a Stephen Covey book, and I think it was The 4 Principles of Leadership.
Thanks.
And it was fantastic. I mean, it talks about leading indicators, lagging indicators, which are really measurements to help your organization. And we've actually incorporated that here at GaggleAMP. It's a powerful book. You should definitely check it out.
Cool. I will. I'm a huge Covey fan. So love the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Old, but timeless.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, Glenn, thanks a lot for being on the show. As part of our wrap up and something that we want to do weekly, we do want to get to a Quora question of the week. I'm not going to do that this week since we're short on time. Also want to do what we call a nonprofit shout out of the week. And so this week's nonprofit is an organization called Give Hope Global. That's givehopeglobal.org. This is an organization that supports orphans in Haiti. It's an all volunteer organization, which means that when you donate, when you sponsor orphans, the money actually gets there. I had the privilege of visiting Haiti with my family, took them there, spent some time in some orphanages with this organization. It's for real. It's awesome. And then I'm going to close. We want to have a quote of the week too. And so this one is from Howard Schultz, Starbucks CEO. This kind of ties into what you were saying too, Glenn. And the quote is, risk more than others think is safe. Dream more than others think is practical. So thanks so much for joining us, everybody. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter at room_214. You can also subscribe to our email newsletter by going to room214.com/blog. Again, be sure to check out GaggleAMP. So thankful for Glenn spending his time with us on this first episode. Our weekly series will pick back up again on Thursday, January 7th. At 11:30 Mountain Time. And of course, we'll send out the invite and set up the Blab in advance. Happy holidays to everybody on behalf of everyone at Room 214. Thanks again for joining us.